Skyrim was the biggest stamp of approval the company has ever received on their products. Nothing about 23 million sold says you're on the wrong track. And that's disappointing. For every good addition or tweak to the controls or formula I felt the game aced, I can think of 3 others that were simplified, dumbed down, or completely removed. At this point, it seems like Bethesda is treating their series like a zero-sum game, where you can only add a system or feature if you cut another. A far cry from the aspiration of the earlier Elder Scrolls games to achieve something greater that has never been experienced before. It seems that in the minds of many regulars, the series has already peaked, and that is one mountain Todd Howard's team hasn't been able to climb. Taking a page out of Blizzard Entertainment's playbook, ZeniMax formed a team to start working on a massively multiplayer online game set in the Elder Scrolls universe. With talent who had worked on Dark Age of Camelot and other titles in the past, they formed an entirely new division to create the game, ZeniMax Online Studios. Production began in 2007, just a year after Oblivion launched. It was a business decision that made sense, given the gaming climate at the time. Blizzard Entertainment's leap into the world of MMOs had proven to be a colossal success, enjoying several years of over 10 million paying subscribers. The prospect of guaranteed customers each month is any company's dream, and so the troubled development of the Elder Scrolls Online began. After 7 long years, ESO launched in 2014 to a resounding thud. Major influencers and reviewers panned the game, citing its bugs, stability issues, and exploits. Some users paid for a subscription, but their account wasn't activated. And reports of terrible zone instancing where you'd enter a solo quest area, only to see everything you'd have to fight already dead and looted. With a retail price entry fee on top of a paid subscription model, set against the shiny and polished World of Warcraft and Guild Wars 2 as competition, ESO had a long, hard climb to regain its trust and interest from fans. But eventually, they managed to do just that. ZeniMax Online launched Tamriel Unlimited a year later, a major update to the game which eliminated paid subscriptions and simultaneously launched the game on current-gen consoles. With this dramatic shift in business model and years of patching and content updates, the game has improved greatly. Playing it today is a smooth and enjoyable online experience and has all the hallmarks of an MMO you can sink hundreds of hours into. But does it replace the single-player experience of a proper Elder Scrolls game? While the combat is solid, there are the abilities you'd expect in the genre that will have you cycling your number keys, tossing spells, and using abilities against your enemies. They brought back Oblivion's lockpicking system and the mainline series stealth mechanics, which allows you to even kill some townspeople and evade guards, as well as other features familiar to the series. But there are so many more limits and guidelines this time around. Some chests will literally tell you that you need to start a questline to open them. The enemy AI is woefully short-sighted, and half the time won't notice their cohort's slaughter next to them. And the entire experience feels like an MMO, modified to be more like the Elder Scrolls, not the other way around. It's difficult to immerse yourself in a world that earnestly tells you that you're its savior, when you're surrounded by hundreds of other heroes riding flaming horses. No suspension of disbelief can overcome the spectacle of townspeople stepping over their dead colleagues, or not batting an eye at dozens of Daedra pets trampling through their town. The Elder Scrolls Online clearly wanted to emulate the single-player RPGs that inspired it, and it does a competent job at that, considering the standard MMO trimmings players expect from this type of game. It looks and sounds like a bigger Skyrim. It plays somewhat like an online Oblivion, but it feels like an MMO. If Oblivion and Skyrim's less original look and feel wasn't enough, ESO's brand new team and graphics department further diluted it into a more generic aesthetic. Take away the branding and now it just looks like any other fantasy world. Even the series staples like the Clanfear have been changed to look and act more like velociraptors. The game's story and setting was headed up by newly appointed lore master Lawrence Schick, longtime friend of Ken Ralston, who had worked on Kingdoms of Amalur together. Relatively new to the series, Lawrence carefully studied the previous game's history and plots to build up a true-to-form reimagining of previously explored locations. Now I can't tell if I'm personally maddened more by the team's apparent reverence of the series' lore and roots, or the actual gameplay's disrespect of everything the Elder Scrolls universe was meant to be. For starters, ESO's world building is about as subtle as a troll's club to the face. Glenumbra, for example, was featured in the game Daggerfall, right? Daggerfall featured a ghost story and a temperate rainforest climate. So naturally, in ESO, there are towering monster vines with undead and necromancers sprawled everywhere. It's like they take and understand the lore of each province, then crank it all the way to a screaming 11. But that's part and parcel for an online game that must house and entertain thousands of people at a time in a densely populated environment. It's a shame the subtleties of the single-player games were lost, because at times, ESO is a marvel to look at. I actually liked playing it a lot more than I thought I would, considering my long history with the series. And I do enjoy the exaggerated world it lays down before me, but I don't believe it. In a way, an Elder Scrolls MMO was the eventual goal of the series, even as early as the second game. In my YouTube interview with one of the series creators, Julian LeFay, last year, he stated that he designed all the way back in 1986 each and every NPC to have their own individual stats and everything that would define an actual player character, with the intended goal to eventually implement multiplayer. He described his vision to make a fully featured world of the same colossal scope of Daggerfall, but with each and every NPC being able to be taken over by a player. A truly ambitious idea, but as the troubled small-scale multiplayer in Battlespire showed, the engine and the hardware at the time was hard-pressed to do what we can do so effortlessly today. Later taking another cue from Blizzard's successful franchising of their Warcraft property, a digital card game spin-off was met with little unkins and such, all sorts of graphical enhancement options, and room for modification. This could breathe new life into the most ambitious entry to the series. The detail and lengths fans have gone into keeping the dream alive is nuts havoc elsewhere, from creating and making hundreds of brand new spells available, to rebuilding
main Elder Scrolls game. Here's my thoughts. First off, I know I keep saying this, but wow, the growth I'm seeing in my channel is blowing my mind, and I am beyond grateful. You guys are so awesome, and I love reading all the comments and suggestions you guys are sending my way. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel if you want to support me and see more content like this. Also, at the end of this video, I'm gonna show you a few of my favorite comments from the last video I did. Anyways, let's get into it. The Elder Scrolls Arena, the very first Elder Scrolls game, came out in 1994. Right off the bat, the game throws you directly into character creation. What's cool is that you can actually select where your character comes from, and you can see what the Tamriel map looked like all the way back in 1994. It's crazy to see that the maps that they're using for the games now are the same as they were all the way back then. Also, the area you select determines your character's race. When you create your character, you have the option of generating a character's class automatically or creating one yourself. Generating a character, in my opinion, is a lot more interesting than just choosing a class. The game presents you with a series of questions, with your answers used to determine what class the game assigns you. From there, you can change your character's appearance and assign bonus points to your stats, and then you're on your way. Leveling up in this game also allows you to increase your stats, so you're completely in control of your character's overall build. When it comes to stats, it's closer to Dungeons & Dragons than it is to a modern fantasy game. This game's appearance gives me kind of Doom vibes, but with significantly more things to keep track of on the screen. The visual style is kind of a damp gray and brown, but it works for the setting.